Betty from Betty's Brigade. The girls would like to know, Mr. Chapman, what your feelings are about the judge that declined the Bank of America's $33 million settlement with the SEC. He calls it minuscule compared to what needs to be charged against these fraudulent investors.
Well, that's correct. And, we see lots and lots of frauds now. And everybody's familiar with Madoff, which I'm told by insiders is about $140 billion. And there's been a number of smaller ones. Mr. Stanford is sitting in jail now waiting for trial. And to keep him in jail, they must have some heavy-duty evidence. And then there's a number of others. There was one I exposed about a year and a quarter ago. And then finally the bottom fell out on that one about a month or two ago, I guess 2 months ago. The same kind of thing is Madoff. The money goes in the front door and out the back. And what they do is they ship it offshore, and then when they get caught, they go to jail for several years, but in the case of Madoff, they put them away forever. And so they get to spend all that money if they're young enough to do the time and get out. And seldom is that money retrieved, because what they do is they send it to offshore locations, and they go through corporations, and they send it from one corporation to another in different jurisdictions. Like the first amount of money might go to the Cayman Islands, and then it might be sent to another corporation in Turks and Caicos, and from there it might go to Panama, and then to Jersey or Guernsey, the Isle of Man, and on and on and on. And so it's a tremendous job for the FBI to chase this stuff down. And there's a lot of those kind of things going on, and they should really come down on them hard.
Mm-hmm. Mary from Illinois comes in and she says there shouldn't be no settlements unless prison time. What do you agree?
Well, it all depends on the offense. I mean, if somebody has defrauded somebody of let's say $300,000, you're better off not having him in jail. You're better off having him pay the money back that he stole from the people. So what you do is you let him go back to his job, and you take money out of his pay every time he gets paid, so that he can bring down the balance of the money that he stole. Or you take his personal property and sell it off and take that and give it to the people who have been aggrieved. Now, if the money is far more than he's capable of making, say over the next 10 or 15 years, then you have to make another arrangement. But that's what hurts criminals the most. Taking their money away and making them work and making them give part of that money back out of their salary until they get them paid off.
Mm-hmm. Understood there. And that works for me. Betty Brigade comes in and says, what's Mr. Chapman's feelings about Goldman Sachs coming out and saying that the people will feel the stimulus effects later on?
Well, what they're talking about is the large part of the package that's coming to fore next year. But they're also at the same time talking about a recovery, and this is the beginning of this new supposed recovery, and they're talking about not right now, which is just before the last quarter of the year. So first of all, the GDP figures are absolutely ridiculous. They're such bad lies that even an idiot can figure it out. I mean, in the first quarter, GDP fell to a minus 6.4%. In the second quarter, it was a minus 1%. It is absolutely almost impossible for something like that to happen. And so they just don't care what people think. And they go on their merry way lying about things. And we're not going to have a recovery, and not with unemployment rising, savings rising, and on the other hand, you have the sales of goods and services are falling. I mean, you heard the fellow that was just on from San Diego. Businesses are closing up. They can't make it anymore. Taxation is killing them. Lack of buying. And it's going to continue. It's not going to stop. And unfortunately, there is not going to be any kind of a substantial recovery, even if they plow another $2 trillion into the pockets of the American public or into public works. And if you go back and look at what Hoover started in 1931, which led to the Civilian Conservation Corps, and you'll see that through the years after FDR picked it up, it just didn't accomplish anything permanent. Now, I'll tell you why. Government contends that during the 1930s, unemployment was somewhere between 25 and 30%. And in 1939, unemployment was 17.2%, and unemployment in 1940 was 16.4%. Now, it was a recovery, but they increased spending by 45% of the national budget during all of those years. And so they didn't solve anything. They just had another war. And that war was planned. And how I found out about that, our government was gracious enough to have me in Army counterintelligence. And one of the first things I learned was that the Japanese diplomatic code was broken in 1937 by both the British and the United States government, and I knew everything the Japanese were doing. And when they were on the way to Pearl Harbor, they let them come right in there and bomb it and sink everything. And that's a fact. That's what governments are like. And so, you know, whenever the economy gets crummy, they have another war. It's ridiculous. And we go out there and get maimed and killed doing it. And it's got to stop. And that's what goes on.
Betty in Southern California comes back in. I'm glad you're getting a little active, Betty. She comes back in and says, Mr. Chapman, Secretary of Treasury Timothy Gunther has gone on a tirade today using expletives and basically having a little baby temper tantrum because too many Americans are yelling and screaming at town hall meetings around the United States and are not going along with Obama's edicts. Remember, Mr. Chapman, when Clinton wanted the Anti-Terrorist Act, he gave us Oklahoma City and Timothy McVeigh. And when Bush wanted the Patriot Act, he gave us 9/11. And then later, just before he walked out of office, he shoved the bailout bill down our throats with threats of total collapse just last summer. Now we have Obama, and he wants this heavy-handed federal government in finance, regulations, and manufacturing and health care. Health care at what cost? Our guess? What kind of crisis will Obama give us to push his totalitarian fascist agenda, or do you have any comment?
Well, I sure do, and I couldn't have said it better myself. I was on a program earlier today, GoalSeek, and we were talking about the Obama reform package for health. And I've renamed it the Obama Euthanasia Plan. And the other fellow on the program says, well, we went you one better. We call it the Obama Kevorkian Program. But on that particular program, what they're going to do is increase the premiums to young people who should have lower premiums because of their experience in having medical care. And anybody with chronic diseases, whether they're young or old, and that happens quite frequently with older people, they're just not going to give them treatment. They're going to let them die. And that's part of what this package is all about. And if you don't think so, you're missing the boat, because that's what they're up to. And with that, they want to execute a whole bunch more of edicts taking freedom away from the American public. The thing is going to end up in committee, and there'll be lots of changes. I don't know whether it'll be passed or not, and I surely hope it won't be. But it is terrible for America, terrible. And you know what? A lot of doctors are just going to say, especially doctors who are over 60, and these are the guys who have the most experience, and ladies as well. And, you know, if they can practice till 70, I mean, you get them at an optimum, and some of them even go to 75 and 80. They're all going to drop out. There's going to be a massive shortage of doctors. Many of them will go to other countries that don't have socialized medicine.